The for sale sign was crooked. That's the first thing I noticed as I pulled into the driveway after a 4-hour drive from college. The lawn was overgrown, the porch light was missing a bulb, and where there should have been my little brother's bike or my mother's welcome mat, there were 3 large black trash bags. I blinked, stepped out of the car, and stared at the bags like they might move. Maybe I was at the wrong house. Maybe this was some kind of mistake. But no, the tree was there. The one Dad and I planted when I was 8. I'd drawn a heart into the bark with my initials before it grew out of reach. This was home. Or at least, it had been. I walked to the porch slowly, like the wood might give out beneath me. The bags were stuffed full and duct-taped shut, but one had split along the side. My clothes, a textbook, my old retainer case. I crouched down and pulled out a cracked picture frame, our family photo from the beach trip 3 summers ago. Everyone was smiling. Everyone was lying. I grabbed my phone and dialed my uncle first. Uncle Thomas always knew what was going on. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Marissa." "What's going on?" I asked. "The house is empty. Why is there a for sale sign? There are bags on the porch with my stuff inside." There was a long pause. "They moved last week," he said, his voice small. "Didn't they tell you?" "No," I whispered. "No one told me anything." He didn't say anything else. I hung up. I called my dad. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. Then, "Hello?" His voice was flat, not surprised. Not guilty, just tired. "Dad, the house is empty. There are garbage bags here, with my stuff. What's going on?" Silence. Then he said, "We moved. You're an adult now. Deal with it." And the line went dead. I stood there, hand still holding the phone to my ear like he might come back. He didn't. I called my mother, straight to voicemail. Gabriel, my brother. No answer. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Not even a damn sticky note on the door. Across the street, an old neighbor was watching me from his porch. I must have looked insane, kneeling next to a pile of garbage bags, clutching a broken photo frame with trembling hands. I sat on the porch step and stared out at the yard. The maple tree swayed gently in the spring breeze, the one my dad and I planted together, before everything got so hollow. Its branches reached toward the roofline of a house that no longer belonged to us. Or maybe no longer belonged to me. I didn't cry. Not then. Not yet. I stood up, loaded the bags into the trunk of my car, checked into a motel on the edge of town, $47 a night, scratchy bedspread, low water pressure, but it had a door I could lock. A space that was mine, even if just for the night. I laid the bags out on the bed like puzzle pieces of a life I no longer lived. A pair of winter boots, a half-used planner, the broken photo frame, a few dollars in tips from my on-campus job, stuffed into a jacket pocket. That night, I made a decision. If they wanted to pretend I didn't exist, then I'd return the favor. The motel smelled like stale air and detergent, the kind that lingers in cheap curtains and thin carpets. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling fan and listened to it tick, tick, tick like it was counting down to something. At 3:12 a.m., I checked my phone again. No new messages. I dialed my mom's number for the 3rd time, straight to voicemail. Gabriel's went silent after 1 ring. No text, no apology, not even a lie. They were gone. I stepped outside and sat on the concrete walkway in my hoodie and socks staring at the flickering vacancy sign. The highway in the distance was quiet. I wrapped my arms around my knees and tried to breathe like everything was fine, but everything wasn't fine. When I was 8, my father made me dig the hole for the tree with my own hands. Said it would teach me patience. Said strong roots took effort. He held the sapling upright while I packed the dirt. Then we watered it together side by side. He said, "This tree will outlive us both. That's the point." I wonder if he even looked at it before he left. Back then, family was the gospel in our house. My parents came from nothing, crossed the border with 2 duffel bags and no money, built a life brick by brick. We sacrificed so you could succeed, they'd say over every dinner. Education is your ticket. Don't waste it. So I didn't. While my classmates partied, I studied. While they got mall jobs, I interned at the courthouse. I earned a pre-law scholarship. I sent part of it home every month. Groceries, bills, Gabriel's school fees, and still, they left me. But Gabriel? He never got good grades. Never cared. About school. He got caught shoplifting twice. Once from a gas station, once from the corner store down the street from our church. Mom cried. Dad said boys make mistakes. And that was it. He's just finding his way, they said. He needs more time, they said. No one ever said I needed time, or grace, or protection. I was the safe bet, the quiet one, the easy one, to let go. The next morning, I walked to the diner next door, ordered dry toast and black coffee. I couldn't taste either. The waitress called me hon, and that almost broke me. I couldn't go back to campus. Dorms were closed for break. I had nowhere to stay. Nowhere that was mine. So I scrolled through my contacts until I saw her name, Professor Wilkins, my constitutional law instructor, the one who stayed after office hours and told me I had a good mind, a strong spine. She once said, "You don't speak often, but when you do, people listen." I didn't know what I was hoping for when I called her, but she picked up. "Marissa?" "They just left," I said. My voice cracked. My whole family, they moved, didn't say a word. Everything I owned was in trash bags. Silence. Then, "Come stay with me until the dorms open. No rush. We'll figure it out together." I stared at my phone for a second after the call ended. I felt seen. Not rescued, but seen. And that was enough, for now. Professor Wilkins lived alone in a 2-story Victorian just off campus, the kind with creaky stairs, narrow hallways, and a library that smelled like old books and lavender. When I stepped inside, I felt like I had entered another world. One where no one was watching me. No one was waiting for me to fail. Her guest room was small. Just a twin bed, a writing desk, and a lamp shaped like a swan. But it was warm and safe, and it had a door I could close without fearing what was on the other side. She didn't ask questions that first night, just handed me a towel, a set of clean sheets, and said, "There's soup in the fridge, and tea if you can't sleep." Then she let me be. That silence, that gentleness, was something I hadn't realized I was starving for. The next morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through lace curtains. Her cats, Fitzgerald and Poe, were curled at my feet like I belonged there. I didn't, not yet. But I wanted to, so I got up, showered, and opened my laptop. If I couldn't go home, I'd build something better. Spring break came and went. While everyone else posted selfies from the beach or their parents' lake house, I sat at that little swan lamp desk drafting legal research summaries for a new housing discrimination case. Professor Wilkins had slipped into my folder. She hadn't assigned it. She'd offered it. That distinction meant everything. Later that week, she asked me to join her at Riverton Law Partners, a local firm with a summer legal internship program. She said they needed someone for intake and outreach, someone organized, someone who listened. I didn't hesitate. My first week at Riverton, I watched 3 families come in with eviction notices, scared, confused, humiliated. Some didn't even speak English. Some had been served illegally. All were being pushed out by greedy developers offering them 2 weeks in a motel and a handshake. It was all legal, but it wasn't right. That's when something cracked open in me. I wasn't just angry about my own story anymore. I was angry for them, for everyone who got thrown out like they didn't matter, like their lives could be bagged up and left on a porch. "Channel it," Professor Wilkins told me over chamomile tea. "The best advocates don't just read case law, they live it." That night, I pulled out a notebook and began drafting something I didn't yet have a name for, a resource, a lifeline, an idea. By midnight, the title had scribbled itself into the margin, Safe Space Initiative. I underlined it twice, then circled it, hard. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just after I'd finished organizing intake files for 3 students facing off-campus evictions. I almost didn't answer. The number was local, but unfamiliar. Hello? Marissa, it's Mrs. Hernandez. From across the street. My heart stuttered. I hadn't spoken to her since the day I found the bags on the porch. I hope it's okay I called, she continued. Your brother gave me your number. He said, you might not pick up if you saw your parents' names. My jaw clenched. If this is about reconnecting... No, she interrupted. Not directly. It's about the house. She told me someone had broken into the old place. A back window smashed. The police thought it might have been a homeless person or a scavenger. Nothing was taken, but something had been left behind. An envelope. With your name on it. I stood completely still. It looked official, she said. From a law firm. It's here with me. I haven't opened it. Can you? I asked, barely breathing. Just tell me what it says. I heard the sound of paper tearing, then silence. It's about your grandmother's estate, she finally said. Your mother's mother, from Mexico. She died when I was 13, I whispered. I barely remember her. The letter says you've inherited property in Oaxaca, she continued slowly. And a bank statement. Marissa, it shows a balance of over $400,000. I pressed the phone to my ear like it might collapse in my hand. That had to be a mistake. My grandmother lived simply. A small home, a fruit garden, a transistor radio she played gospel music on. But Mrs. Hernandez kept reading. After her death, the property had been sold to a resort developer. 2 condos were built. My portion came from the sale of those units. It says the estate was finalized. Last March. I stopped breathing. Last March, 1 month before my parents packed up, tossed my life in trash bags, and vanished. This wasn't coincidence. They knew. They knew about the inheritance, and they left me behind anyway. I hung up the phone with hands that didn't feel like mine. Sat there at the safe space office, surrounded by flyers, legal pads, eviction forms, and felt everything drain out of me. Grief, rage, disbelief. They all hit at once, like cold water thrown on a sleeping face. Later that evening, I sat in Professor Wilkins's kitchen, a mug of untouched tea in front of me. They kept it from me, I said. Are you sure? She asked softly. Yes. The lawyer sent everything to my parents first. I was still a minor at the time. They had to be notified. She set her fork down slowly. Have you considered why? Because they didn't want me to have it, I said. Because they wanted it for themselves. She nodded. But gently. Perhaps. Or maybe they wanted to control when you found out, so you'd be grateful. Dependent. I pushed the mug away. Or maybe they never planned to tell me at all. The next morning, I called the law firm in Oaxaca. The inheritance was real. The funds were untouched. They'd been holding the account until I turned 21. 3 days later, the money appeared in my account, for the first time since standing on that porch, staring at trash bags in an empty house. I felt untethered, not just from my family, but from the lie that I needed them to build a life. They left me behind to protect what was never theirs. Now I had something they couldn't take back. The presentation was scheduled for 2:30 p.m. sharp. I arrived at the Watkins Foundation building an hour early, blazer pressed, hair pulled back, slides rehearsed to the breath. This wasn't just any pitch. This was everything. A $300,000 grant. A shot at turning Safe Space from a scrappy student initiative into a real nonprofit with staff, offices, reach. And I had to be perfect. Still, my hands trembled. I sat in the sleek downtown lobby, skimming my note cards, but the words blurred together. I couldn't stop thinking about the deposit, the number sitting quietly in my bank account, money my parents had hidden from me, now mine to hold. To wield, to protect. I hadn't touched a cent. Not yet. At 2:17 p.m., Eleanor Grayson, My internship supervisor and unofficial guardian angel, stepped into the lobby in a charcoal pantsuit sharp enough to cut steel. "You ready?" she asked, sliding into the chair beside me. "As I'll ever be," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. She squeezed my shoulder. "The board can be stiff, but they care about impact. Tell the story, don't just show the numbers." I nodded. Story. That I could do. We were minutes away from being called in when a foundation assistant walked briskly into the room, headset tilted and face tight. "Ms. Lopez?" "Yes," she leaned closer. "There are people in the lobby. They say they're your family. They're asking to speak with you. They say it's urgent." I froze. My heartbeat wasn't a beat anymore. It was a bass drum. Eleanor stood slowly. "We can ask them to wait," she said firmly. "Or leave entirely. This is your call." I looked at the assistant. "Tell them I'll speak with them. After the presentation?" "Not before." "Are you sure?" Eleanor asked. "I'm sure." The assistant nodded and walked away. I turned back to my notes, but I wasn't reading anymore. I could feel them. In the building. The same people who tossed me out like garbage, who cashed in silence for control, who thought they could just show up now, as if nothing had happened. But they wouldn't get this moment. Not today. The boardroom was cool and wide, with a long polished table and a wall-sized screen behind us. 8 people in business attire looked up as we entered. I recognized some of their names from the Foundation's website: donors, CEOs, a retired judge, and at the center, William Watkins himself. He smiled. "Ms. Lopez, Ms. Grayson, we were impressed by your proposal. Now show us why Safe Space deserves our support." I connected my laptop. My hands were still shaking, but my voice? Steady. I walked them through the project's birth, growth, and impact. The numbers, the cases, the students we helped. Eleanor chimed in to explain the legal gaps we were filling: housing codes, tenant protections, financial barriers. They asked sharp questions. I answered every single one. But the whole time, just outside that door, my past was waiting to speak, waiting to be seen, waiting to make itself heard, one more time. When the boardroom doors closed behind us, Eleanor turned to me and whispered, "You were extraordinary." But I barely heard her, because just down the hallway, past the glass lobby and the clean marble floor, they were waiting. My mother. My father. Gabriel. The same people who left me behind without a word, who put my life in garbage bags and sold the house we planted our roots in, who ignored 247 calls until it suited them to remember I existed. They stood when they saw me, all 3 of them. My mother's face crumbled, a fragile blend of hope, panic, and something that might have been guilt. My father stayed seated, arms crossed. Gabriel lingered behind them, older now, a little taller, eyes darting everywhere. But at me. "Marissa," my mother said, stepping forward, "we need to talk." Eleanor touched my arm. "Call me later." I nodded, then turned to them. "How did you even find me?" My mother swallowed. "There was an article about the Safe Space program. It mentioned today's presentation." "So you thought you'd just show up?" I said. "After a year of silence?" My father finally stood. "This has gone on long enough. You're being childish." I let out a short laugh, the kind that comes out when fury meets disbelief. "Childish?" I repeated. "I came home to find my belongings in trash bags. You abandoned me, and I'm the one acting childish?" "We made a mistake," my mother whispered. "We want to make it right." I folded my arms. "Now you want to make it right, after I rebuilt my life, without you. Why now?" Gabriel shifted. "Just hear them out, Jazz." I turned my eyes to him, the brother who stood quiet while I disappeared. "I know about the inheritance," I said flatly. My mother froze. My father's face darkened. Gabriel blinked. "That's why you're here, isn't it? Because the money finally cleared." "You've always been so quick to judge," my father snapped. "And you've always been so quick to discard," I shot back. "You knew about Grandma's estate last March, and still, you left me on that porch like I didn't matter. Mother's eyes filled with tears. You know? I know everything, I said. The letter, the property, the $400,000, and the fact that you were notified long before you moved. We stood there, in the middle of the foundation lobby, like ghosts replaying a funeral. Please, my mother said, her voice breaking. We were ashamed. Your father lost his job. I couldn't make enough. We panicked. We didn't want you to see us like that. So you sold the house, took my name off the mailbox, didn't even leave a note. She nodded slowly. We thought, if we moved, we could fix things. Before you found out, your father thought it would protect you, that you'd be better off. I looked at the man who raised me, who once told me roots mattered. And now, they said nothing. Now that I've built something without you, you want back in. Not because you love me, but because you saw me in a headline. No one denied it. I exhaled slowly. The rage wasn't sharp anymore. It was cool, clean, like the calm after a long, bitter storm. I've built a new life, I said. With people who see me, who value me. My father stepped forward. We're still your family. I met his eyes. Family doesn't put your life in trash bags. I pulled a 20 from my wallet and placed it on the coffee table for their drinks. I don't need closure. I need distance. And with that, I turned and walked away. The call came the next morning. The Watkins Foundation had awarded us the full grant, $300,000 over 3 years, with an additional $50,000 for operational expansion. Safe Space was no longer a student project. It was real, and it had a future. That afternoon, a local news station came by the office. They filmed the intake room, our case boards, and 2 students who volunteered to speak on camera. I stood between them, proud, steady, not as someone who'd been rescued, but as someone who had rebuilt. A week later, the segment aired on national television. 5 minutes of airtime that reached millions. I later heard, through someone who still spoke to Gabriel, that my parents saw it. They didn't call again, and I didn't wait for them to. Instead, I stayed late at the office that night. The phones were quiet, the building empty. I sat in my little corner, surrounded by printouts, eviction papers, volunteer schedules, and reached into the bottom drawer of my desk. I pulled out the old picture frame, the one I'd found in the garbage bag. The glass had been replaced, the wood mended, but the crack was still visible, running right through the middle of our family beach photo. I'd filled it with gold lacquer. A friend of mine called it kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing what's broken with something stronger. I placed it back on the desk, right next to our mission statement. Then I turned off the light. I didn't need to be angry anymore. I didn't need closure, or forgiveness, or to make them understand. I had roots now, ones I planted myself. And this time they weren't going anywhere.